Take the roll.
Brenham. McBride. Livingston.
Here.
Weaver.
Here.
Mackey.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. And for the record, Councilman Branham did reach out ahead of time to notify me that he will not be able to attend tonight's committee meeting due to a prior work obligation. The next item on the agenda is approval of minutes from July 25th, 2023.
Move to approve, Madam Chair.
A motion for approval and a second. Any discussion? Okay, Madam Clerk?
McBride.
Yes.
Livingston.
Yes.
Weaver.
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Next item is adoption of the agenda. Administrator Brown, or any additions or changes?
I understand the attorney may have some recommended changes, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to add an item, executive session item, H-Tax discussion. I'm not sure if you want to add it before or after items for action.
Okay, so currently our executive session is scheduled for after items for action. So would you be okay with us making it 5C?
That's good.
Okay. And I'm sorry, can you repeat again what 5C will be?
Hospitality tax discussion.
Got it. Any other additions or changes to the agenda? I entertain a
Madam Chair. Second.
motion and a second. Madam Clerk?
McBride. Livingston. Weaver.
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion approved.
First item on the agenda is item 4A, Community Planning and Development, Planning Services, Town of Blythewood Intergovernmental Agreement. Administrator Brown?
Yes, I believe I have ACA Jensen in the audience. I thought I saw him around.
I passed him coming in.
Okay.
He was going upstairs.
So this item, let me pull this up, Madam Chair. This is a governmental agreement with the Town of Blythewood. I'm gonna pull up staff's recommendation on this. This is an item that they've been working on related to infrastructure, engineering services, and maintenance, including the review of land development projects, stormwater review, and the maintenance of roadways. This is something that planning and development have been working on along with the county attorney's office. And the bottom line is with Blythewood being their own entity, there are certain services that they have, certain services that Richland County has. And what we're doing is that they're basically creating an environment where the town of Blythewood is going to utilize certain standards. And there's an agreement with Richland County that in these particular areas that the agreement outlines how these particular areas, which include engineering services, infrastructure and maintenance, the review of land development projects, stormwater review, and the maintenance of roadways will occur in the town of Blythewood. And so because this something did not exist, the staff was working with Blythewood staff in order to set up an agreement which would allow them to manage those things through this intergovernmental agreement between Blythewood and Richland County. And so the details of the agreement have been reviewed by legal. Certainly want to yield space to the county attorney to weigh in on any of that process. But the agreement that's before you is something that's being requested to enter into so that the agencies can work together to perform these reviews using this agreement.
And Madam Chair, I did speak with Mr. Price earlier today, and it is something that, given the current situation, is what happened with Blythewood as far as the potential annexation of some property, as well as potential permitting stop. He thinks it should be deferred right now until we kind of know for sure what's happening with the potential annexation and permitting regarding the Scout property.
And Attorney Wright, to clarify, when you say you spoke with Mr. Price, is that Director Geo Price from
That
Planning
is-
Department?
Right.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion or questions from the committee? Mr. Livingston, you recognized?
That was the recommendation from Director Price, yes.
Which note is different from the recommendation in the packet, so we just had to be clear on any motion made, which recommendation we plan to accept. Livingston?
Do you know whether this is sensitive?
No, sir. There, again, this is something that was already in process, but given the current nature of a couple developments that you've heard Mr. Wright address, they're just asking to apparently hold off at this time. So this likely will be before you again, either in another iteration, once we determine how everything else goes, if it's still necessary. So it is not time sensitive and can be deferred if that is the current request of staff, which it sounds like it is.
That's it, Madam Chair.
Currently have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Second. A motion and a second. Any discussion? Councilman Weaver, you recognize?
Madam Chair, I still have one question. So who is asking it to be deferred? Is it Blythewood or is it our staff?
It sounds like our staff was, but that's probably because there's been some recent occurrences.
Okay.
And so they're just trying to make sure that everybody's clear
Okay.
on how everything stands to determine how this should be adjusted if necessary.
Okay, and Blythewood is fine if we.
Yeah, this won't
if
impact
we
them
defer
negatively
it.
right now.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And just for clarification, it's my understanding when we do a motion for deferral that we need to state a date. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, motion to defer to next committee meeting. We had a motion and a second and discussion. Any other comments, concerns? All right. Madam Clerk?
McBride,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Next item is item 4B. County Council Fund Adventures Children Museum Hospitality Tax Request for facility improvements and enhancements to improve safety and attract new visitors. This was a motion that I made on August 29th that the chair sent to A&F for consideration. On pages 26 of our agenda packet, it includes a formal request from Adventure as well as diagrams and information for an exhibit and improved safety features at their facility with a request for hospitality funding. We do have staff available to answer any additional questions that the committee may have related to the request. Mr. Livingston, you recognized?
Could someone give me the balance
Madam Chair, if you can recognize Director
Dr. Ham?
Finance Ham, yes.
Yes, Director Ham, you recognize?
Okay. All right, Director Ham, Finance Director Stacy Ham. With the use of fund balance in FY '24, that would leave the balance at $13.6 million. That's in the fund.
that fund we budget cycle?
Well, during this budget cycle that we're in right now for FY '24, we had 16 million, we're using 3 million, so that leaves us the $13.6 million.
Any other questions or comments related to the request? We do. Typically, we give the committee members any time for a discussion ahead of time, like we do any other items, but yes.
I move for approval.
We have a motion for approval. I'll second. Any further discussion? Mr. Livingston, you recognized.
And I don't know who gave an answer to this or not. Are there any requests from the city regarding this particular project for Adventure?
All right. We do have the executive director here from Adventure. Mr. Livingston, would you like to hear from him?
Do I have that answer? Yes.
Yes. Yes, sir. Sir, give me just a minute, turn your mic on. And if you would, state your first and last name, please, just for the record.
Yeah, I'm Andy Marquardt. I'm the CEO of Adventure. Yes, the city has been approached to do some facility upgrades in regards to infrastructure, and mostly related to our HVAC system. They also provide all of the in-kind services to manage the exterior of the facility as well as ongoing repairs and improvements.
Ms. McBride, you're recognized.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to say that I do have concerns regarding the transparency and the, what I call ad hoc funding of programs coming in without following procedure, in that we do have a grant funding cycle for hospitality funds. I think to ensure transparency, to ensure that we're following grant funding policies and procedures, and to ensure fairness for other entities that may be wanting to apply for funding, that I assume that we had developed the grant process during our budget cycle that will allow for agencies coming in to request hospitality funding. This may end up being a cherry-picking process where at any time an entity could come in and ask for funding for any source. Being that I am a process and procedural person, I feel that there should be a process in place to request funding, and that process was budget, unless there are extenuating circumstances. And so I would truly be supportive of this funding if it were in the FY24 funding process, where that we could go through a regular and appropriate procedures. With that said, I am concerned about transparency, I'm concerned about fairness, and I'm concerned about rules and regulations regarding hospitality funds. So because of that, I cannot support this particular motion at this particular time.
Thank you, Ms. McBride. For clarification, I just, since we have staff available, can there be clarification related to the hospitality grant process? I know we have a hospitality grant process. It was my understanding that folks can apply, but there's also a limit on said request. But can we have clarification on that?
Madam Chair, if I may be recognized.
A.C.A. Thomas, you recognize.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am, we do have a hospitality grant application process. There's only $500,000 that is assigned to that process. Other entities that would apply for hospitality tax funding typically do come to the council through other means. And yes, quite a few of them do come during budget season, but that is the process.
Thank you. So just for, I guess, clarification, as far as the process goes, the hospitality grant process is one, but if the request exceeds that amount, then other organizations have come to council for request of hospitality funds outside of that process. So I just want to clarify, I think, Ms. McBride, you're right about the process, but I think this doesn't necessarily fall into that process. Okay. Yes, ma'am, you're recognized.
In the budget process, there's a process not through the hospitality committee, which is a separate committee, but you can submit the request through the budget process, through the formal budget process that takes place in May, where most of our projects requesting larger funds come through. And so that was the process, the other process that I was speaking of in terms of budget, the budgetary process that we use. Again, if this is open up to anybody, any entity at any time can come in and request funding, then I think that's something that it needs to be known to the public, and that's something that we as a council need to consider formalizing the process.
Ms. McBride, just so I can clarify, I think I hear what you're saying. There is a hospitality grant process, and then you're saying also during the budget time that folks make recommendations. And I hear that. I think the other piece I'm not understanding is it was not my understanding that an organization could not request funds outside of the budget process. So I know that you can do it in the budget process, but I was not ever aware of a process that said you cannot request it any other time during the year.
And that is true, but I think that for transparency and fairness, then the entire community needs to know that, because only those established entities are aware that you can request funding outside of the budget period. And I just want to make sure that we're transparent and fair to everybody and getting out appropriate communications, that this is available to others.
Mr. Livingston, you recognize?
Chair, based on the conversation here, I would like to make a substitute motion. And that motion is to forward this to council without a recommendation, to give full council an opportunity to read it and see what they want to do with it. So that is to forward to council without a recommendation.
So we have a substitute motion right now.
Second.
Correct. So that motion dies for lack of a second. Ms. McBride, you recognize?
Yeah, I just didn't understand, because if we voted on this, then if it got approved, then it would be forwarded to council anyway, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Just
Okay.
without the committee's recommendation for approval.
Oh, so you're saying forward to council
Council without a recommendation.
Without a recommendation, okay, that was missing, okay,
Okay.
all right. So I will second it without a recommendation.
So can you state
Oh,
your
I'm
motion
sorry.
again? No, you're fine. Mr. Livingston, may you state your motion again, please?
Motion is to forward this to council from the committee without a recommendation.
I will second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you take the vote, please?
McBride,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Weaver,
No.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Next item on the agenda is another motion that I submitted on April 18th. Move to direct the county administrator to add paid parental leave as a benefit available to full-time Richland County employees, and to update the employee handbook with a policy that reflects a minimum of 6 weeks of available paid parental leave. The goal for implementation of this new benefit is January 1st, 2024. On pages 35 through 40, there is draft language for this policy. As a reminder for all committee members, this motion was made during our April 18th meeting. It received unanimous approval by county council members to move forward with this benefit. What we have before us today is the draft language that will be included in the employee handbook, which staff stated they would bring back to us for final approval before this new benefit goes into place in the new year. Administrator Brown, is there anything you would like to say regarding the draft language?
I would like to say, in terms of just the employees in general, this is very exciting. We do have the Director of Human Resources, Ms. Harley, who's been working on this as a part of county administration. So if it please Madam Chair, as necessary, Ms. Harley is available to discuss any details of the policy that's been put together, but certainly an exciting moment for the employees of Richland County.
Thank you. Just due to the length of our agenda tonight, I won't ask Director Harley to come give a formal presentation, but I would ask if we have any committee members who have questions or specifics to please state that now. Councilwoman McBride, you're recognized.
I don't have a question, but basically a statement that I agree that this is a good policy. and it appears to be a companion to the state family leave policy. And so I don't know whether, I put it in the form of a question, Mr. Administrator, because I don't know whether or not the state policy, we contacted anyone regarding the state policy, because many of the things within this policy are very similar.
In general, there are some similarities, and I think that makes sense, so that people can feel confident in knowing what you're getting. Even though that we are a competitive agency and competing with other agencies, the competitive benefit is important to share that information. So it is very similar to that policy.
Thank you.
Mr. Livingston, you recognize?
This policy is scheduled to take effect in January?
Yes, sir. The new year, January 1st, 2024.
So those additional funds will be coming from what, the general fund? Would it be an additional cost?
The cost is anticipated, Mr. Livingston, so you won't require the council to take any additional action related to funding.
And so that would, don't need a budget amendment, that's all.
It does not require a budget
Thank
amendment.
you.
I had a question about two things in the language. One, I'm trying to find it, but there was a bullet in here that talked about kind of the order in which you go about using. So paid parental leave would be your first set of, paid parental leave would be your first set, and then from there it states you would go into sick leave and then utilize your PTO, and then possibly be able to utilize unpaid leave. My question is, where does the option of short-term disability go into the order of which they would have to use?
Madam Chair, may I be recognized?
Yes, Director Harley.
Thank you. Regarding short-term disability, our employees actually have policies that sometimes will coordinate with our existing benefits. We don't administer that internally, so that employee would work with AFLAC or their carrier to have those benefits taken care of.
And so I guess I say that to say it doesn't apply to this, meaning that they take their 6 weeks, and after that, if they want to utilize their short-term disability without using their sick leave, you're not going to say, oh, no, you have to use the sick leave.
No.
Okay.
We don't administer or get involved with how those policies run. So sometimes they do run concurrently, meaning the employee may actually get paid for short-term disability while getting paid through the county. So those are administered outside of our office.
And then the other suggestion, I guess, that a recommended change that I wanted to present to my colleagues on the committee is the addition of adding language related to stillbirth and being able to have paid parental leave for that. So mothers that do experience childbirth, but the child is born with stillbirth, and them having the time off to still deal with that mentally, and then also for their body to heal. And so I would like to make a motion to add stillbirth language to the proposed policy before us. That is a motion.
Second.
Thank you. You have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
So,
Ms.
This-
McBride, you recognized.
Thank you. So will this be, again, we don't know, initially, Mr. Brown, you stated that would not be an additional cost. I'm wondering, will this change the numbers? It probably won't be a large percentage change. But will that change the numbers and in looking at the actual cost to the county?
The short answer is yes, ma'am, but we don't know to what extent. And to your point, you can look at we have to go back and look at statistics, but it will not have what's the right term? A significant or material impact, I would say, on the ability to put this policy in place and financially afford it. So it would have a financial impact just because the numbers may change, but those numbers won't change to materially affect us being able to implement the policy within the funding that the county has.
Okay. And with, I support the stillbirth, but I'm just trying to find out in terms of policy procedures and your experience with these type of policies. Is this something common that's done or as part of the family leave policy?
Yes, so if employee was to experience a stillbirth, we would absolutely allow that employee to take leave under the Family Medical Leave Act because they would need that same amount of time to recover medically.
So it is consistent with the
Yes,
policy?
it is
That's what I-
consistent.
Thank you.
And Councilmember McBride, if you don't mind, I would like to add too, you talked about the comparison with this policy through the state's policy. One distinct difference that we have included in this policy is that we do want to offer 6 weeks of leave to the co-parent so that we have that diversity and inclusion with that policy. So 6 weeks would be offered to the birthing parent and the co-parent.
All right, so we had motion and discussion, and this vote that we're doing now is just to add language related to adding stillbirth to the policy. Madam Clerk?
McBride,
Yes?
Livingston,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. One other item that I wanted to bring up for discussion on page 38. It's the second to last bullet on the bottom. It says eligible employees will receive a maximum of 2 weeks of paid parental leave for the placement of a foster child over the age of 6 months. And just wanted to hear staff's, thought process into how we came up with 6 months and why not 12. 6 months still seems like a very young age, and to only say for 2 weeks.
Yes, so, that is up for discussion, and we would definitely welcome any input that you have. We do know of some situations where staff and employees may foster children consistently throughout the year. And of course, there was some conversation if this would be challenging from an operational perspective. If an employee, let's say, has a foster child brought into their house 2 or 3 times per year.
I would like to see, and I understand that example, then I would like to at least see the one above where we say a maximum of 6 weeks for the placement of a foster child 6 months of age or younger. If we could maybe look at changing that to 12 months of age or younger. So at least 1 year old or younger, if you're getting a 12-month or younger as a foster parent, that you're given up to 6 weeks to really bring that newborn home. I'd like to make a motion to change the policy language to third bullet from the bottom of the page. Eligible employees will receive a maximum of 6 weeks of paid parental leave for the placement of a foster child 12 months of age or younger.
So the amount of weeks doesn't change, just the age of the child, is what you're saying?
So I made a motion. Can we get a second for discussion? I mean, motion and a second. Ms. Livingston, you recognized?
Yes, so the amount of weeks doesn't change, but the age of the child, you're saying is only.
As it relates to foster.
Foster, right?
Yes. So if you foster a child 12 months or younger, you would get 6 weeks leave if you're having a newborn.
Currently 6 months.
It still is currently 6 weeks, but it's saying 6 months, and I'm saying, recommending, can we increase the 6 months to 12 months of age? Councilman Weaver, you recognize?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just to clarify, so the employee would get 1 6-week period during the year, correct? They wouldn't get multiple 6-week period, like Ms. Hurley's point, if you had multiple foster children, you still get 1 6-week. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes, that is correct.
You get 1 6-week period?
Yes, he will
Okay.
get 1 period.
Okay.
Councilwoman McBride, you recognize?
Okay, I think I'm clear. So if you were to foster 2 kids, one for 6 months, and then you decide to get another foster kid, you would not get an additional 6 weeks if that kid was under 12 months.
Correct.
With motion and discussion. Good. Madam Clerk, would you take the vote?
McBride,
Yes?
Livingston,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Any other discussion, amendments, changes at all to the proposed policy? I'd like to make a motion to accept the proposed policy presented by staff with the recommended changes we just voted on during the committee meeting.
Second.
A second? Discussion. Madam Clerk?
McBride,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Thank you so much to my colleagues. I think this truly is a remarkable thing for a council to support paid parental leave for our staff. I think it's a huge recruitment tool, but I think it also shows our commitment to our families, mothers and fathers. So thank you. Item 4D is Department of Public Works, Solid Waste and Recycling Landfill Capital Expansion. Administrator Brown?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We do have General Manager Ansel in the audience for details, but in short, Solid Waste and Recycling requests approval for task order number 9 to Civil and Environmental Consultants, Inc., in the amount of $225,000, specifically for a capital expansion at the Richland County landfill. If you look at, I believe it's page 41 on your agenda item, there is some discussion that talks about the fact that the landfill is reaching its useful life. And as a result of that, they're looking to expand. And so that's why this item is before you. And so that's why staff is asking for this to be approved. And Madam Chair, again, if there are more details, I do have General Manager Ansel available to answer those questions.
Councilman McBride, you recognize.
I move for approval.
We have a motion for approval. Second, any discussion? Councilman Weaver?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have one question. I'm not sure who to answer it, but on the campaign trail, I was asked a couple times about why do we allow, if we do, I may have this wrong, why do we allow commercial haulers to bring their loads to the landfill? Do we do that? Like people that are getting paid to pick up trash can bring their trash there?
I think I understand the question. Here in Richland County, as part of the collections contract agreements, Richland County is responsible for the disposal costs. So we have opportunities to utilize our landfill for certain services, and we utilize waste management for other services. When we have that opportunity, it's more cost effective to divert a truck to our landfill where we can manage those costs a bit more effectively. Does that answer
So
the
we
question?
not only accept Richland County generated trash, we accept trash from commercial haulers from wherever it is, or does it have to be Richland County?
No, sir, it is specifically Richland County.
It's specifically Richland
Yeah,
County?
Richland
Okay.
County, we accept Richland County waste at our Richland County C&D landfill.
Okay.
Now, if those people were referring to waste management landfill, that is a private entity that does accept out-of-state, out-of-county waste.
So if they didn't have the Richland County option, then their options would be waste management alone?
Not alone, there is another landfill, it is called L&L, which is just down the street from there.
Okay.
And there is another Class 3 landfill down at the bottom of Highway 601 on
Okay.
McCourse Ferry Road.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. All right, Madam Clerk, would you call, take the vote, please?
McBride,
Yes.
Livingston, Weaver,
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Next item is item 4E, the County Administration Convention Center Tourism Development Fee. Administrator Brown?
Yes, ma'am, Madam Chair. As I speak to this item, we do have the CEO available in the audience of the Columbia Convention Center, as well as one of their board members. But the Columbia Metropolitan Convention Center requests 50% of the collected tourism development fee to be used for operational expenses and marketing to fill a portion of their budget deficit. In short, to tell you what's in the packet, what you have is, for a period of time, Richland County, along with the City of Columbia, and at one point in time, Lexington County, there was an agreement that there was funding that would be applied from the collection of the tourism development fee, which would be utilized for operations, marketing, and the pay of a bond debt. Once that bond debt was recently satisfied, what happened is the county that used to collect the fee and then give it to the city, who would then apportion it to the convention center, that changed. So now the county collects the fee, still collects that fee. That fee is sitting in the county's coffers. And now the convention center is saying, even though the bond debt is satisfied, we still have operational needs, and we're requesting that the county remit 50% of the collections of the tourism development fee to the convention center. And so that's what the request is for. And in order for us to do that, it simply requires an action, from ultimately county council, with that understanding that we will remit those funds to the convention center. So, Madam Chair, we'll take any question that you may have, and again, we have those folks here that can speak to any more details related to the request.
All right, Mr.
Approval for discussion.
We have a motion for approval.
Second.
Second. All right. Councilman Weaver, then Councilman Livingston.
I'd just like to say, Madam Chair, I'm very much in support of this. I think the convention center is an economic development tool. This is not a tax increase. This is just shifting around some funds since the bonds have been paid off. And I think I think the convention center could well use the money.
Thank you. Mr. Livingston.
I don't know who can answer my questions, but if I recall correctly, the tourism development fee, the entire amount of that have gone to the convention center in the past? Can anyone answer that for me?
The amount that's collected by Richland County was remitted to the city of Columbia, who I understand would then remit those funds to the convention center.
Yeah, my question is whether the total amount of those funds went to the convention center for operation and to pay off the bond. Can Mr. Allen?
We have a speaker out there, Madam Chair.
Yeah, I would.
Oh, you would know that.
Right,
Okay.
that would be internal to the convention center.
Got it. If you would, sir, please state your name for the
Yes,
record.
Bill Ellen, and I want to thank Madam Chair and council members for allowing us to be here. Councilman Livingston, yes, 100% of the fees that have been collected over the last 20 years was submitted to the convention center. And as Mr. Brown pointed out, the bonds were paid off June the 30th of last year, so that debt service is no longer there. However, marketing expenses and operational expenses continue to go forward. And so that's what we're asking for this money to continue to be funded. And I would like to point out, this is a tourism development fee, which is technically a tax, is collected by our hotels from their out-of-town visitors that stay in their hotels. For 20 years, this has totally supported the operations, debt service, construction of the convention center without ever asking for a penny from Richland County citizens, unless you happen to stay in a local hotel and pay that tax. So this tax was structured beautifully, has worked exactly like it's supposed to, and we just ask for your approval to continue funding us that portion. We requested 50%. The debt service amount was about a third of the amount it was funded, so we've been getting about 2/3 of the amount to go towards operation and marketing. That would be a perfect world if you decided to do that, but our request is at least 50%.
Madam Chair, I just want to correct one thing. Legally, a tax and a fee are two different things, so they aren't the same thing.
Thank you. We always need that good legal language. Tax and fee are separate, and we don't need to confuse the two when we talk about our
Tourism development
taxpayers.
fee.
There's a fee and there's a tax. All right. Mr. Livingston, you recognize.
So you're asking for 50% of that tourism development fee. Now, in the past, the county didn't get any of that because it all went to y'all. So that 50% that's left will go into the county's coffers, and we can probably, I don't know, save for another bond or whatever, but that would be money actually coming to the county to do whatever we need to do with it.
Yes, sir. And the way I understand that fee was structured is it needs to go towards funding of a tourism-related expense. So, but that would be council's choice to what you would do with that 50%. And just to give you round figures, ballpark figures, The amount collected last year was a little over 1.4 million, so there would be about 700,000 that would go back into your coffers.
And that's what I'm getting at. So if we decide to do another bond later on, then we can use that for that, yeah?
Yes, sir.
Thanks, great.
I have a follow-up clarification. I just want to make sure I understood it. Because Mr. Livingston's question was 100% of the funds collected going to the convention center? But I heard you say 2/3.
No, 100% of what was
Including the
collected
bond.
was going towards the convention center. 2/3 was going towards operations and marketing, and 1/3 towards debt service. So that actual 2/3 will continue, but 100% was funded.
So just clarification. So the 2/3 you're still continuing to receive now. You're just asking to increase it to 50%.
No, ma'am,
Okay.
right now, council, to my understanding, has not determined what to do with that tourism development fee pot. So we're asking that 50% go. When I mentioned 2/3, I mentioned that because of the 100% that was collected, 1/3 of it was going towards debt service, which has been paid off. So that 1/3 is not needed for debt service. We still need about 2/3 towards operations, but we've requested 50%.
Councilwoman Bride.
So that means, and Mr. Brown, I would like to direct my question to Mr. Brown. Okay. So the 50% would go to the center, convention center, and then that would give us the remaining amount of money, but those funds would have to go directly towards tourism. Is that the legal understanding? Or
So I think that's the decision that we're talking about that the council gets to make as to in what area of tourism or how it's applied. But for the purpose of this conversation, then it's really about whether or not you take care of their request, and then you can look at your request and figure out what you might want to do with that as well.
But my decision would be based on how the other funding can be used.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
You're
Oh,
recognized, County
sorry.
Attorney.
Yes. I think right now, since basically all of it's going or was going towards the convention center, that was the tourism related. But yes, all of it has to be towards some tourism related matter or item.
Excuse us. I'm sorry. We have disruption in our committee meeting. I'm sorry, County Attorney.
Yes.
Would you please start over so we can make sure all committee members are able to hear you? Thank you.
Yes, the funds from this fee would have to go towards a tourism related matter.
Okay, and that is to be decided. That's what you're saying, Mr.
Right,
Okay.
right.
And so it's a two-part question. Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Is that-
So we were in discussion. To clarify, so a motion right now to approve the 50% request, is there a end date on this, or is this until?
They're asking, I'm positive they're asking for that to be reoccurring as long as you're collecting that fee. That is my understanding of the request.
Yep, Ms. McBride, you recognize?
So oftentimes we do things based on the budgetary year funding. So each year, we look at how much money comes in, and then because the previous bond or terms are no longer in place, that should be an annual assessment to determine what should be done.
That's something that you can certainly decide to do, and I think that's what we're saying here, or what's being discussed, is that there hasn't been a decision, so you can potentially make a decision for this year, and I guess the fiscal year, and then decide what you might want to do in terms of apportioning that amount, next, year. So that's certainly within your wheelhouse. In your packet on, I believe it's page 50, I'm sorry. What page is that, Ms. Carrillo? Page 50 just shows you what it was for 22, 23, just so you can have that data available to you.
So before it didn't come to us, we just automatically did it for the past 20 years.
That's
So
correct.
it's a procedural question that we're looking at now in terms.
Yes, ma'am. So
Oh.
since the bond was satisfied, things have now changed procedurally. And so that's why staff requires action from the council, because we don't have an approved procedure because the bond debt was satisfied.
Additional question I have, I guess, is related to, so I understand where you're collecting on this fee, and the current motion right now states 50% would go to the convention center. Do we know, are there any other governmental entities that are giving of their percentage as well to the convention center?
My understanding in our conversations with the City of Columbia is that they're still giving a significant portion. I don't know what the percentage is, but they're still remitting a large portion of funds to the convention center as well.
So it would just be Richland County and City of Columbia that would give their fee, or a portion of their fee collected to the
As far as I'm
convention
aware, yes, ma'am.
center? Okay.
I'll make a motion to call the question, Madam Chair, in the interest of time.
Second. Second call for the question.
Madam Clerk?
McBride,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Next item on the agenda is, I lost my agenda. Thank you. Is executive session to discuss items 5A, B, and C. County attorney, these require any outside counsel?
No, but they are pursuant to Code Section 30-4-70, subsections A2.
I entertain a motion.
Madam Chair.
Second.
Have a motion, a second, to go in executive session, discuss items 5A, B, and C. Madam Clerk?
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you.
I move to come out of executive session.
Thank you. I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Madam Clerk?
McBride,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Let the record show that we went into executive session, discussed items 5A, B, and C in the agenda. No action was taken in executive session.
Madam Chair, are you looking for a motion on this?
I am looking,
5A?
well, whatever motion y'all want to give, whether it be adjournment or
Well,
whatever
okay.
the body desires.
Well, I'll make a motion then, item number 5A, to direct the county administrator and/or attorney to put together a package for the full council to consider.
So I want to make sure we get it right for the record, because we cannot direct the county attorney to do anything.
Okay.
So
Sorry, Mr. Wright.
just to stay above board, I would like to amend your motion to just direct the county administrator,
Authorize.
or authorize the county administrator.
I will accept that amendment,
All right?
Madam Chair.
Just for clarification, I think we're authorizing county administrator to enter into negotiations, and then bring that back before council. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we had a motion, and did I hear a second?
Second?
Second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk?
McBride, Livingston,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes,
Motion approved.
thank you.
Madam Chair, that was for
That was for item 5A.
5B. I'd like to move that we authorize the administrator to enter into negotiation, bring that back before council, reference item 5B.
Second.
Second.
Discussion? Madam Clerk?
McBride, Livingston,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes,
Motion approved.
thank you. All right, we're at item 6. Unless someone else have a motion. Have motion for adjournment, is there a second?
Second.
Motion second, Madam Clerk?
McBride, Livingston,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Meeting's adjourned. I apologize to our colleagues for going slightly over for A&F. Thank you.
We'll excuse you this time since you were productive.
November 26, 2023. I'd like to welcome you all to Richland County Council zoning public hearings. This meeting will now come to order. Madam Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Branham,
Here.
Here.
McBride,
Present.
Livingston, Teratio,
Here.
Weaver,
Here.
Barron, Walker,
Here.
Mackey,
Here.
English,
Present.
Newton. We have a quorum.
Record reflect that Councilwoman Newton and Councilwoman Barron would not be in attendance this evening. They both have obligations in the community that are pretty important and urgent on this evening, so we certainly will miss them. And we also have Councilman Branham, who is attending on tonight's public hearings virtually. He is away on business. However, he has made himself available virtually, and our rules allow for virtual participation. When